Joining me now is Alex Anthopoulos via phone talking about his Braves. And Alex, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And before we get to this particular series, I wanted to ask you first about the Austin Riley extension. 10 years, $212 million. He even said he didn't think it was going to happen as quickly as it did. Why was it important for the Braves to show him your confidence in him and keep him there for the long term?
Yeah, glad to be on, no doubt. We had never done an extension to this level in years and in total dollars. Definitely obliterated any Braves previous contracts that had been done. So, our chairman, Terry McGurk, obviously very involved in something like this, signing off on something like this. But, look, from Austin's standpoint, he deserves it. He earned it. He's one of those guys that checks the boxes in terms of off the field and how he carries himself. And you have to have a high degree of trust when you're committing that many years and that many dollars. So from that standpoint, it did come together fast. I think a big part of it was as we were leading up to the trade deadline, we just started to explore a lot of things with a lot of potential contracts, long-term contracts that would come back to us. And we felt like if we were going to do a long deal with Austin, the timing of the trade deadline was definitely going to have an impact. So we talked about that, and we were able to get it done fairly fast. And we were obviously grateful that we could because it did give us clarity, and it did take some deals off the table that we were exploring, but it did allow us to shape our trade deadline because obviously this is a large commitment, especially for our payroll and going forward, and it allowed us to make decisions with other players we were trying to acquire.
But Alex, you don't mess around. You did the same thing with Matt Olson when you guys acquired him from the Oakland Athletics. You signed him to a long-term deal. You didn't have to do it right away, but I appreciate the fact you don't let players linger. Why is that?
I think just continuity, path. I think it's important that, as much as you want to keep all your players, obviously, it's hard to do, but I do think it's important to have continuity, and I think it's important for the fan base, too. I grew up in Montreal, so I was accustomed to players going out the door, and it was tough. I remember I tell the story all the time when I was in Toronto. I was crushed when they traded Delino to Shields for Pedro Martinez, and obviously it was an incredible deal. But you get attached to players. That doesn't mean we're just going to keep everybody strictly for that reason and alone. But I do think obviously the goal is to win, but I think the fan base, knowing that certain players are going to be there and you have a certain core, knowing that if you buy a jersey that you probably have a good chance to keep that jersey for a long period of time. And look, I think in terms of getting these things done fast, I think part of it is having trust on both sides. And, we knew ultimately we came in with a very strong offer right out of the gates that was going to show that we were going to be serious. And we explained that timing was going to be important. And I think from that standpoint, I think we established trust in doing that. We worked together, and we were able to get it done. We outlined our goals and why, and we were really glad that we were certainly able to get it done. But more importantly, obviously, a guy like Austin Riley had to make the decision to want to stay and to commit to us as well. So it works both ways. Now we know he's here for a long period of time, and we can continue to build around him and the other players that we do have.
The goal is to win. You're the reigning World Series champions. You have a 5.5 game advantage in the wild card, but you're only 4.5 back of the Mets in the NL East. This is a big series, as you know better than anybody. How much weight are you guys putting on this series against the Mets?
We don't come into any series and put a ton of weight on it, but of course it's important. We're behind them in the division, head-to-head games, 5 games in 4 days. These games are no doubt that they're important, but regardless, that there's still a lot of games after this series as well. So you can get hot at any time. You look at what the Cardinals did at the end of last year, winning 18 in a row, whatever it was. And even from our standpoint, it's been well documented. We were under 500 and got to over 500 first week of August and then continue to climb. So I think the biggest thing, and I think something that we've done well, and that's from SNIT down to the coaches and the players, we worry about that day's game. We don't look ahead. And we just basically go at it and try to win day in and day out. And at the end of the day, hopefully you get back to the playoffs, and that's ultimately the goal. Of course, you want to win the division. No doubt about that. The opportunity to have a bye and so on can be very impactful. But it's not the same as past years because, obviously you were staring at a one-game wild card in the past. Now you're at least guaranteed a series. So, again, but make no mistake, everybody wants to win the division. That's certainly the goal. But, even prior to that, you definitely want to make sure that you get in. So we're in a good spot, but we're playing some really tough teams, and we need to continue to grind.
My last question for you, Alex, is if you look at the probables, Spencer Strider is set to throw for you guys on Sunday up against Jacob deGrom. He could very well be the NL Rookie of the Year, but you acquired Jake Odorizzi. How much is there an impact of being able to have Jake take some of the innings off of Spencer?
You know, we've been asked a lot about Spencer and innings, and I've said this quite a bit probably the last few days, but we don't have hard caps on innings for anybody. I was asked about it coming off the COVID year in 2020 for Max Fried. We watch guys day to day, outing to outing, inning to inning. So there is no limit. Spencer, you know, and all the other starters, we'll watch them. So we don't have it at all. I think the big thing with Jake is that our depth at the starter spot is thin right now. And obviously Jake's had a nice year. He's doing well. He's got a ton of experience. We've got 2 games Saturday. We've got 2 more games the following Saturday. We have a stretch of, I believe, 14 games in a row, so highly probable that we go to a 6-man rotation there. And look, over the next two months or so, I'd love to tell you we're going to have 5 guys stay in the rotation, performing, stay healthy, but just based on past experience, that's probably not going to be the case. So having 6 guys that you feel really good about that have achieved a lot in their careers, I think over the long haul that we have here, these last 2 months, I think will be critically important for us.
Alex Anthopoulos, President of Baseball Operations and General Manager for the Atlanta Braves. Thank you so much for taking a few moments to be with us today on High Heat.